The space station called Zenith Prime floated in the darkness between stars. It was huge, bigger than any city on Earth, and it belonged to the Galactic Council. Today was special. Today, humanity would join the Council for the first time. Commander Jake Morrison stood at the airlock of the human ship Valor. He wore his best uniform, dark blue with gold buttons. Behind him stood 20 other humans, all carefully chosen for this moment. Some were soldiers, some were scientists, some were diplomats. All of them knew how important this day was. "Remember," Jake said quietly to his team, "we represent all of humanity today. Stay calm, be respectful. Do not touch anything unless invited." The airlock opened with a hiss. Beyond it stretched a massive hallway with walls that glowed soft purple. The air smelled strange, like copper and flowers mixed together. Jake took a deep breath and stepped forward. His team followed. The hallway led them to a grand chamber. Jake had seen pictures, but nothing prepared him for the real thing. The room was enormous, with a ceiling so high he could barely see it. Hundreds of aliens filled the space. Some walked on 2 legs like humans. Others had 4 legs or 6 or even more. Some had fur. Others had scales or smooth skin that changed colors. A few floated in the air without any visible means of support. All of them turned to stare at the humans. Jake felt his heart beat faster, but he kept his face calm. He had trained for this. Behind him, Sergeant Ben Clark stood ready, his hand near his weapon but not touching it. Ben was the head of security for this mission. He was a big man with short brown hair and calm eyes that missed nothing. An alien approached them. It was tall and thin, with blue skin and 4 arms. Its face had no nose, just small holes where a nose should be. When it spoke, a device on its chest translated the words into English. "Welcome, humans of Earth. I am Ambassador Trell of the Lumerian people. The Council is honored by your presence." Jake bowed slightly. "The honor is ours, Ambassador. Humanity thanks the Council for this opportunity." Trell gestured with 2 of its arms. "Please come. The ceremony will begin soon. First, you must meet the other members." The next hour passed in a blur of introductions. Jake met insect-like beings called Chitauri, whose bodies clicked and clattered when they moved. He met the Kellans, rock-like creatures who spoke very slowly. He met the Vraxil, powerful warriors with red scales and sharp teeth who looked at humans with suspicion. Then came the Krethians. Jake saw them across the room and understood immediately why other species gave them space. The Krethians were massive. The smallest adult stood nearly 8 feet tall. Their bodies were covered in dark scales that looked like armor. Their hands ended in claws as long as knives. When they opened their mouths, rows of sharp teeth gleamed under the lights. The Krethian ambassador was named Korvan. He had deep green scales and yellow eyes with black slits for pupils. When he approached Jake, the floor trembled slightly under his weight. "Human Commander," Korvan said. His voice was deep, like thunder rolling across mountains. "I am curious about your species. You are small. You have no natural weapons. Yet you reach the stars. How?" Jake met the Krethian's eyes without flinching. "We learned to work together. We learned to use tools. We learned that being smart can matter more than being strong." Korvan made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Perhaps. We shall see if your wisdom serves you well among the Council." He paused, then added, "I have brought my family to witness this historic day, my mate and my son." Jake looked past Korvan and saw another large Krethian, probably the mate. Beside her stood something much smaller. It was clearly young, maybe only 4 feet tall, with lighter scales that had not yet hardened into armor. The young Krethian looked around with wide, curious eyes. "Your son is welcome here," Jake said politely. The ceremony began. Jake and his team stood in a designated area, while various council members gave speeches. The speeches were long and formal. Jake tried to pay attention, but his mind wandered. He noticed that the young Krethian kept staring at the humans. The cub seemed fascinated by them. During a pause in the speeches, the young Krethian began to wander. Its mother reached out to stop it, but the cub was quick. It moved through the crowd, weaving between aliens who stepped aside quickly to let it pass. Nobody wanted to get in the way of a Krethian, even a young one. The cub made its way toward the humans. The other aliens in the room noticed. Conversation stopped. Eyes turned to watch. The Chitauri ambassador made a clicking sound of alarm. Even the Vraxil warriors stepped back. Ben Clark saw the cub approaching. The small Krethian walked right up to him and stopped, tilting its head. Ben could see intelligence in those yellow eyes. The cub was not attacking. It was curious. Ben slowly lowered himself to one knee. This put him at the same height as the young Crethian. He had dealt with animals all his life. Dogs, horses, even wild animals sometimes. He knew that making yourself smaller made you less threatening. The cub moved closer. Its nostrils flared as it sniffed Ben's uniform. Then it noticed Ben's gloved hand resting on his knee. The cub reached out with one small claw and tapped the glove. Ben held perfectly still. The young Crethian opened its mouth. Even young, its teeth were sharp and dangerous. The cub leaned forward and gently closed its jaws around Ben's gloved hand. It did not bite hard, not yet. It was testing. Playing. Seeing what this strange creature would do. The room erupted in chaos. Aliens shouted in a dozen different languages. The translators struggled to keep up. Corvin roared and began charging forward, his massive body moving with terrible speed. The Crethian mother screamed something in her own language. Human soldiers reached for their weapons but stopped when Jake raised his hand sharply. Ben did not move. He did not pull his hand away. He did not show fear. Instead, he looked directly into the young Crethian's eyes and spoke one word. Release. His voice was firm but not angry. It was the voice of someone who expected to be obeyed. It was the same tone he had used 1,000 times with dogs back on Earth. The young Crethian's eyes widened. For a moment, nothing happened. The entire room held its breath. Corvin was almost upon them, ready to pull his son away from this human who might hurt him. Then the cub opened its mouth and let go of Ben's glove. It sat back on its haunches, looking surprised. Its bottom jaw stuck out slightly in what could only be described as a pout. The cub's eyes became slightly wet as if it might cry. Ben reached out slowly and patted the young Crethian on the head, right between its small horns. Good boy, Ben said softly. The cub's pout disappeared. Its tail, which had been tucked down, began to wag slightly. Corvin skidded to a stop beside them. He stared down at his son, then at Ben, then back at his son. The massive Crethian's mouth hung open in shock. The entire chamber had gone completely silent. Hundreds of aliens stared at the scene. No one moved. No one spoke. They had just witnessed something impossible. A human had given a command to a Crethian, and the Crethian had obeyed. Jake Morrison slowly let out the breath he had been holding. He looked at Ben, who still knelt beside the young Crethian, and then at Corvin, who seemed frozen in disbelief. Whatever happened next, Jake knew one thing for certain. Humanity had just made an impression on the Galactic Council that none of them would ever forget. The news spread through the galaxy faster than light itself. Within hours, every species in the Galactic Council knew what had happened at Zenith Prime. A human soldier had commanded a Crethian cub to release his hand, and the predator had obeyed. The story grew with each telling, but the basic facts remained the same and impossible to believe. Emergency meetings were called. Council members gathered in private chambers to discuss this strange development. Some were excited. Others were frightened. All of them were confused. In the Chitari section of the station, Dr. Ralvin watched the security footage for the 20th time. The insect-like scientist could not make sense of what she saw. The human had no weapons visible. He had not used force. He had not even raised his voice significantly. Yet the Crethian cub had obeyed instantly. Play it again, she told her assistant, another Chitari named Zixal. The footage showed Ben Clark kneeling beside the young Crethian. The cub's teeth closed around his glove. Then Ben spoke one word. Release. The cub let go and sat back, looking almost sad about it. Ben patted its head. The cub seemed happy again. There must be something we are missing, Dr. Ralvin said. Pheromones, perhaps. Or some form of telepathy. We have scanned the humans thoroughly, Zixal replied. They have no telepathic abilities. Their pheromone production is similar to other mammalian species. Nothing unusual. Dr. Ralvin's mandibles clicked in frustration. Then how? The Crethians are apex predators. They have been spacefaring for 10,000 years. Their young are taught to fight from the moment they can walk. They do not submit to anyone outside their family group. Perhaps we should ask the humans to explain, Zixal suggested. In the human quarters, Commander Jake Morrison sat with his senior staff. They were trying to understand what had happened and what it meant for their mission. The council wants answers, Lieutenant Amy Chen said. She was the team's xenopsychologist, trained to understand alien cultures and minds. They are sending representatives to interview us. What do we tell them? Jake asked. Ben Clark sat in the corner looking uncomfortable with all the attention. I just did what felt natural, he said. The cub was not being aggressive. It was playing. Testing. I have seen puppies do the same thing 1,000 times. Puppies? Amy repeated. Ben, that was not a puppy. That was a Krethian, a species that most aliens fear to approach. I know what it was, Ben said calmly. But it was still a child. And children, no matter what species, respond to firm, calm authority. Amy stared at him. Slowly, an idea began to form in her mind. Ben, have you ever heard of domestication? Sure, dogs, cats, horses. Humans have been domesticating animals for thousands of years. Right, Amy said, her excitement growing. But here's something you might not know. We are the only species that does this. Out of all the species in the Galactic Council, not one of them has ever domesticated another creature. Jake leaned forward. What are you saying? I am saying that humans have a unique ability. We have spent thousands of years learning to communicate with animals. We have learned their body language. We have learned how to show authority without violence. We have learned how to build trust across species barriers, and we think this is normal because it is all we have ever known. Ben shook his head. You are telling me that aliens never figured out how to train animals? They never needed to, Amy explained. Most species evolved as either apex predators or prey. Predators do not need to cooperate with other species. They hunt alone or in family groups. Prey species run from danger. Humans are different. We evolved as persistence hunters. We were not the strongest or fastest, so we learned to work together. We learned to communicate not just with each other, but with the animals around us. We learned to read their emotions and intentions. It became part of who we are. Jake sat back in his chair, thinking about this. So when Ben told that cub to release, he was using skills that humans have developed over thousands of years. Skills that no other species has. Exactly, Amy said. And now the entire galaxy is watching us, trying to understand how we did something they thought was impossible. The next day, Dr. Ralvin arrived at the human quarters with a delegation of scientists. She introduced herself politely and explained that the council wanted to understand human abilities better. We would like to observe your interactions with various creatures, she said. If you are willing, Jake agreed immediately. This could help humanity's position on the council. If they could demonstrate their unique skills, it would give them value that no other species could provide. The scientists brought several creatures from different worlds. They started small. A Lumerian flutterwing which looked like a cross between a bird and a butterfly. It was considered impossible to catch because it moved so fast and was extremely skittish. A young human named Kevin Ross volunteered. He was a wildlife biologist from Colorado. He approached the flutterwing slowly, making himself small and non-threatening. He moved his hand in slow, predictable patterns. Within 10 minutes, the flutterwing landed on his finger. The alien scientist could not believe it. They tried to explain it with science. Maybe humans had special electromagnetic fields. Maybe their body temperature was soothing. But when they scanned Kevin, they found nothing unusual. Next came a Quilon tunnel rat. These creatures were considered pests on Quilon mining colonies. They were aggressive and territorial. No Quilon had ever touched one without being bitten. Corporal Lisa Grant stepped forward. She had grown up on a farm and had dealt with rats, weasels, and other small aggressive animals. She wore thick gloves and approached the tunnel rat calmly. When it tried to bite her, she did not jerk away. She held steady and made a sharp sound with her tongue. The tunnel rat stopped. It looked at her, confused. Lisa waited. After a moment, the creature cautiously approached and sniffed her glove. Lisa slowly reached down and picked it up. The tunnel rat did not struggle. It sat in her hands, looking almost content. Dr. Ralvin's entire body trembled with excitement. How did you know to make that sound? It is what we call a correction sound, Lisa explained. You make it when an animal does something wrong. The sharp noise gets their attention without hurting them. Then you wait for them to calm down and try again. Try again? Dr. Ralvin did not understand. You give them another chance? Of course, Lisa said. Animals do not understand right and wrong the way we do. They need to learn. You correct them when they make mistakes and reward them when they do the right thing. The scientists documented everything. They took notes and recordings. They asked hundreds of questions. The humans tried to explain concepts like training, positive reinforcement, and body language. But the aliens struggled to understand. These ideas were completely foreign to them. Word of the demonstrations reached Ambassador Corvan. The massive Krethian came to the human quarters with his son, whose name was Vexrin. The young cub stayed close to his father, but his eyes kept looking at Ben Clark. "I wish to speak with Sergeant Clark," Corvan said formally. Ben stood and bowed respectfully. "How can I help you, Ambassador?" Corvan was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer than before. "My son has not stopped talking about you. He says you were kind to him. He says you did not hurt him even though he bit you. This is unusual for my people. We teach our young that the world is harsh, that they must be strong or die, but you showed my son something different." Ben did not know what to say. "I just treated him like any young creature, Ambassador, with patience and respect." "This patience and respect," Corvan said slowly. "Can it be taught?" Ben looked at Jake, who nodded slightly. "Yes, Ambassador. It can be taught." Corvan looked down at his son. Vexrin stared up at Ben with clear hope in his eyes. "The massive Krethian made a decision that would shock his entire species. Then I request that you teach my son. During our stay on this station, I want Vexrin to learn your human ways. If what you did was not magic or trickery, if it can truly be learned, then I want my son to learn it." The room went silent. A Krethian ambassador was asking a human to teach his child. This had never happened before in galactic history. Jake Morrison smiled. This was an opportunity they could not refuse. Sergeant Clark would be honored, Ambassador. And so it began. Every day Ben worked with young Vexrin. He taught the cubs simple commands: sit, stay, come, wait. At first, Vexrin did not understand. He was a predator. He was supposed to do what he wanted. But Ben was patient. When Vexrin obeyed, Ben praised him. When he did not, Ben simply tried again without anger. Slowly, something changed in the young Krethian. He began to understand that listening did not make him weak, that following commands from someone he trusted was not submission. It was cooperation. It was choice. Other species watched this with growing interest and growing fear. If humans could teach a Krethian cub discipline, what else could they do? What other impossibilities might they make real? The Galactic Council would soon find out. 3 weeks passed on Zenith Prime. The human delegation had become famous throughout the station. Everywhere Jake Morrison and his team went, aliens stopped to watch them. Some were curious, some were respectful, but some looked at the humans with anger and fear. The Vraxil Dominion was not pleased with humanity's growing influence. The Vraxil were a proud warrior race with red scales and powerful muscles. They had earned their place on the council through conquest and strength. For thousands of years, other species feared and respected them. Now soft mammals from a backwater planet were getting attention that the Vraxil believed they deserved. War leader Draxel was the head of the Vraxil delegation. He was massive, even larger than Ambassador Corvan, with scales so dark they were almost black. Scars covered his body, each one a mark of honor from battles he had won. His yellow eyes burned with barely controlled rage whenever he saw the humans. "They are weak," he told his subordinates. "Look at them. No claws, no scales, no natural weapons. Yet the council treats them like heroes because they can make a Krethian cub sit on command. It is pathetic." His second in command, a female Vraxil named Kesra, was more cautious. "The council seems impressed with their abilities. Perhaps we should be as well." Draxel slammed his fist on the table, leaving a dent in the metal. "No, I will not accept this. These humans must be tested properly. If they fail, the council will see them for what they truly are. Weak creatures who got lucky with a naive child." "What do you propose?" Kesra asked. A cruel smile spread across Draxel's face. "I will issue a challenge. Let them face a real predator. Not a cub, not a pet, a true killer." The next day, Draxel entered the council chambers during a session. He walked directly to the center of the room and announced his intention in a voice that echoed off the walls. "I challenge the humans to prove their abilities," he declared. "They claim they can communicate with predators. They claim they can calm savage beasts. I say they have only worked with tame creatures and young ones. Let them face a true test." Commander Jake Morrison stood from his seat. "What kind of test do you propose, war leader?" Draxel's smile grew wider. "I have brought with me a Night Stalker from the death world of Krevith. These beasts are used for executions across a dozen systems. They are untrainable. They are pure aggression and hunger. If any human can approach a Night Stalker and live, I will acknowledge your species' gift. If they fail, humanity will withdraw its application to join the council. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some council members protested. The Lumerian ambassador called it barbaric. The Chitauri representative said it was too dangerous, but others supported the challenge. The Quelon said that if humans claimed special abilities, they should be willing to demonstrate them. Several other species agreed. Jake felt his stomach tighten. This was a trap. Draxel wanted to see a human die, but if Jake refused the challenge, humanity would look weak and afraid. They would lose all the respect they had earned. I accept your challenge, Jake said, keeping his voice steady. But I have conditions. We choose which human attempts this, and we are given time to observe the creature and prepare. Draxel considered this. He had expected the humans to refuse entirely. Very well. You have 3 days. But know this. The Night Stalker has killed 3 of my handlers during the journey here. It is a monster in every sense of the word. No amount of preparation will save whoever you send. When Jake returned to the human quarters, his team was already discussing the challenge. Everyone had heard about it within minutes. The station's communication network was fast. I will do it, Ben Clark said immediately. I have the most experience. No, said a quieter voice. Corporal Danny Webb stepped forward. He was a thin man with sandy hair and calm eyes. He spoke softly, but everyone listened. I should be the one. Why you? Ben asked. Because I grew up training dogs in Montana, Danny said. My family ran a kennel for 3 generations. I have worked with aggressive animals my whole life. More importantly, I have worked with abused animals, animals that were beaten and starved and taught to hate. That is what this Night Stalker sounds like to me. Lieutenant Amy Chen pulled up information about Night Stalkers on her data pad. Danny might be right. Listen to this. Night Stalkers are native to Krevoth, a world with harsh conditions. They are incredibly intelligent for non-sentient creatures. They hunt in packs in the wild. But when captured, they are often abused to make them more aggressive for use in executions and gladiatorial combat. So it is not naturally a monster, Danny said. It has been made into one. That means it can be reached. It can be helped. Jake looked at the young corporal. Danny was only 25 years old. He was quiet and easy to miss in a room full of louder personalities. But Jake saw something in his eyes. Certainty. Calm. The same qualities that made Ben Clark so good at his job. Are you sure about this? Jake asked. Yes, sir, Danny replied. I have been watching the footage of the Night Stalker that Draxel provided. He probably thought it would scare us, but I see something he does not. That creature is terrified. It is lashing out because it is afraid. If I can show it that not all beings want to hurt it, I might have a chance. For the next 3 days, Danny watched every piece of footage available. He studied how the Night Stalker moved, how it reacted to different situations, what made it attack and what made it retreat. He took notes and made diagrams. He barely slept. The creature was about the size of an earth tiger but built very differently. It had 6 legs instead of 4, giving it incredible speed and stability. Its body was covered in chitinous armor plates that looked nearly impossible to pierce. Its tail was long and lined with venomous spines. Its head had 4 eyes that could see in multiple directions at once. When it opened its mouth, 3 rows of teeth were visible. But Danny noticed other things too. The way the Night Stalker's ears flattened when handlers approached. The way its body tensed before it attacked. The way it retreated to the back of its cage after fighting, as if ashamed or afraid. These were not the behaviors of a mindless killer. They were the behaviors of a traumatized animal. On the morning of the challenge, thousands of beings gathered to watch. The event was being broadcast across the galaxy. Some species were excited. Others were horrified. The Vraxil delegation sat in the front row, confident that they would soon see a human torn apart. Ambassador Corvin attended with his son. Vexrin looked worried. The young Creathian had become fond of the humans, especially Ben Clark. He did not want to see any of them hurt. The containment area was a large circular arena with transparent walls strong enough to hold the Night Stalker. The creature was brought in a sealed cage and released into the arena. It immediately began prowling, hissing, and spitting. Its venomous tail lashed the air. Its eyes darted everywhere looking for threats. Draxel stood and addressed the crowd. Behold the Night Stalker of Krevoth. Now watch as the human attempts the impossible. Place your bets on how long they survive. Jake Morrison felt sick. This was wrong. But there was no backing out now. He looked at Danny, who stood calmly beside him. You do not have to do this. No one will think less of you if you refuse. Danny smiled slightly. I know, sir. But I want to try. That creature deserves better than what it has been given. He removed his jacket, leaving only his basic uniform. He carried no weapons. In his pocket, he had one piece of synthetic meat, the same kind they had been feeding to Vexrin as treats. The door to the arena opened. Danny stepped inside. The door closed behind him with a heavy sound that echoed through the chamber. The Night Stalker noticed him immediately. It turned and fixed all four eyes on this small, soft creature that had entered its territory. A low growl rumbled from its chest. Danny did not run. He did not freeze. Instead, he dropped to one knee and turned his body sideways. He was making himself less threatening, smaller. He kept his eyes on the creature but did not stare directly at it. Direct eye contact was a challenge to most predators. The Night Stalker charged. It moved incredibly fast, 6 legs eating up the distance in seconds. The crowd gasped. Some looked away, not wanting to see the death that was about to happen. Danny remained still. His heart pounded, but his training held. He had faced down aggressive dogs, wild wolves, even a bear once. He knew that running would trigger the chase instinct. He had to wait. Had to trust. The Night Stalker stopped 3 feet away. It hissed at him, showing all its teeth. Its tail raised, spines dripping with venom, but it did not attack. Danny waited. He held the piece of meat in his hand, arm extended but not too close. He did not speak. He barely breathed. The creature circled him. It was confused. Prey always ran, always fought, always screamed. But this small being just knelt there calmly, offering something that smelled like food. Minutes passed. They felt like hours to everyone watching. The Night Stalker continued to circle, occasionally hissing or snapping its jaws. But each time it approached, Danny remained calm and still. Then something changed. The creature's aggressive posture slowly relaxed. Its tail lowered slightly. Its ears, which had been flat against its head, began to rise. It was still wary, but no longer in full attack mode. Danny saw his chance. Very slowly, he extended his hand a bit more, letting the meat scent reach the creature's nostrils. He made a soft, clicking sound with his tongue, the same kind of sound that dogs responded to. The Night Stalker's head tilted slightly. Its front P, the footage of Danny Webb with the Night Stalker, spread across the galaxy within hours. Every species in the council watched it. Some watched it once. Others watched it dozens of times, trying to understand what they had seen. The impossible had become real. A human had tamed a creature that was supposed to be untamable. Requests began pouring into the human delegation. The Quelon Mining Corporation asked for help with creatures that destroyed their equipment. The Lumerian Agricultural Council wanted assistance dealing with dangerous fauna on their farming worlds. Even species that had been suspicious of humanity now approached with cautious respect. Commander Jake Morrison sat in his office, looking at the list of requests on his datapad. There were already 47, and more arrived every hour. He knew what this meant. This was humanity's chance to prove their value to the Council in a way no one could deny. We need to make this official, he said to Lieutenant Amy Chen and Sergeant Ben Clark. This is bigger than our diplomatic mission now? Amy nodded. I agree, but we need more people. We cannot handle all these requests with just our current team. We need specialists from Earth. I've already sent word, Jake said. The Earth government is assembling a team. Animal behaviorists, veterinarians, wildlife experts, trainers from every field. They will arrive within the month. Ben looked thoughtful. We should give it a name. Something official. Something that shows what we are trying to do. The Human Xeno-Wildlife Initiative, Amy suggested. Our mission is to help all species understand and coexist with the creatures on their worlds. Jake liked it. Good. Ben, I want you to head this initiative. You started this with young Vexrin. You should lead it. Ben felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. I will do my best, sir. The next week, the Council held a formal session to recognize the new initiative. Species from across the galaxy attended. Even those who had been skeptical were now curious about what humans could offer. Ambassador Corvin spoke during the session. The massive Krethian stood before the entire council, his son Vexrin beside him. I speak today about what I have witnessed. 3 weeks ago, my son bit a human soldier. I expected violence. I expected retaliation. Instead, I witnessed patience. Since then, Sergeant Clark has worked with my son daily. He has taught Vexerin discipline, control, understanding. My son is stronger now, not weaker. He is more than just his instincts. Vexerin stepped forward. The young Crethian was nervous but determined. In the galactic common language, he spoke clearly. Sit, stay, come, wait. As he said each command, he demonstrated it, sitting when he said sit, staying perfectly still when he said stay. I learned these from the humans. They did not hurt me. They did not force me. They showed me a new way to be strong. The council watched in amazement. A Crethian learning commands like this was unheard of. Corvin continued, I believe my species has much to learn from humanity. And I am not alone. I have spoken with other Crethian families. Many are interested in these training methods. Perhaps our children do not need to grow up in constant conflict. Perhaps there is a better way. When the session ended, dozens of species approached the human delegation. They all wanted to learn. They all wanted help. The Human Xeno Wildlife Initiative became the most talked about program on Zenith Prime. Within a month, 30 more humans arrived from Earth. They brought equipment, knowledge, and experience. Dr. Patricia Lynn was a veterinarian who had worked with exotic animals for 20 years. Greg Palmer had spent his life as a park ranger in Africa, dealing with everything from lions to elephants. Maria Santos was a marine biologist who specialized in working with sharks and other dangerous sea creatures. Each human brought unique skills that amazed the aliens. The team set up a training facility on one of the station's unused levels. They created areas for different types of creatures, safe zones, observation rooms, teaching spaces, and they began working with species from across the galaxy. The Quellan rock borers were among the first cases. These massive creatures tunneled through solid stone using diamond-hard mandibles. They were destroying mining equipment and had injured several Quellan workers. The Quellans wanted the rock borers exterminated, but they had asked the humans for another option. Greg Palmer studied the rock borers for a week. He noticed they only attacked when they were frightened or cornered. They were actually quite gentle if left alone. He worked with Quellan engineers to design mining paths that avoided the rock borer breeding grounds. He also taught the Quellan workers how to recognize rock borer warning signs. Within a month, mining accidents dropped by 80%. Not a single rock borer had to be killed. The Lumerians had a different problem. Flying creatures called sky raptors were attacking their crops. The birds were smart and adaptable. Traditional deterrence did not work. The Lumerians were losing entire harvests. Maria Santos took the case even though sky raptors were not her specialty. She observed their behavior and realized they were not naturally aggressive. They attacked the crops because their natural food sources had been destroyed when the Lumerians cleared land for farming. Maria worked with the Lumerians to create feeding stations away from the crops. She also helped design scarecrows that used specific movements and colors that sky raptors found threatening. The attacks stopped within 2 weeks. Lieutenant Amy Chen worked on the theoretical side. She gave lectures to alien scientists, trying to explain human concepts of training and domestication. It was difficult. The aliens had no frame of reference. They had no words in their languages for things like positive reinforcement or pack bonding. Let me try to explain it simply. Amy told a room full of Chitauri scientists. Humans survived because we learned to work together, not just with other humans but with animals. We domesticated wolves to help us hunt. We domesticated horses to help us travel. We domesticated cattle to provide food. In each case, we had to learn the animal's language. We had to understand what they needed and wanted. We had to build trust, but why? Dr. Ralvin asked. Why not simply avoid dangerous creatures or eliminate them? Because we saw the value in cooperation, Amy explained. A wolf alone is dangerous, but a trained dog is loyal, protective, and helpful. The same animal, but with a relationship built on trust instead of fear. That is what we offer to the Council. Not just the ability to control animals, but the ability to transform danger into partnership. Not everyone was happy about humanity's growing influence. In the private chambers of the Salxi delegation, Ambassador Tessrock met with other concerned council members. The Salxi were serpentine beings, long and flexible, with scales that changed colors to match their emotions. Right now, Tessrock's scales were deep purple, the color of worry and anger. This human influence is dangerous, she said to the gathered representatives. They have been on this station for less than 2 months, and already they have changed how dozens of species interact with their local fauna. They are teaching our young. They are altering our methods. This is cultural contamination. A Vraxel representative, not Draxel but another named Scarix, nodded in agreement. They make us look weak. Before the humans arrived, we were respected for our strength. Now species admire the humans for their patience and gentleness. This is not the galaxy I grew up in. There is another concern, Tesseract continued. If humans can command loyalty from mindless beasts, imagine what they could do with sentient beings. They could manipulate entire species. They could build alliances through this pack bonding they speak of. They could unite the galaxy under their influence without firing a single shot. What do you propose? Asked a Kellen representative named Grontok. We must show the Council that humanity's methods have limits, Tesseract said. We must demonstrate that their gift, while impressive, is not the solution to every problem. And if we can show that their methods sometimes fail, perhaps the Council will be less eager to give them so much influence. It was a dangerous plan, but Tesseract and her allies were desperate. They could see the future if humanity continued on this path. Humans would become the most influential species on the Council, not through military might or technological superiority, but through something far more powerful. Connection. Meanwhile, young Vexrin continued his lessons with Ben Clark. The young Krethian had progressed beyond simple commands. Now Ben was teaching him more complex ideas. How to control his aggression. How to recognize when other beings were afraid. How to use his strength to protect rather than dominate. One day, a small accident happened in the training facility. A Lumerian child visiting with its parent wandered into an area where a nervous creature was being observed. The creature, startled, began to charge toward the child. Vexrin reacted instantly. He placed himself between the creature and the Lumerian child, spreading his arms wide to make himself look bigger. He made a deep growling sound, but it was not aggressive. It was a warning. The creature stopped, confused by this young Krethian defending a member of another species. Ben arrived seconds later, but the danger had passed. Vexrin had done exactly what Ben had been teaching him. Use your natural advantages to protect, not to attack. Recognize when others need help. The attack came at midnight station time. Security systems throughout Zenith Prime suddenly went offline for exactly 90 seconds. In that brief window, someone released dozens of dangerous creatures from the holding facilities into the main corridors of the station. Alarms shrieked through every level. Aliens ran in panic as Night Stalkers prowled the halls. Krethian war beasts, larger and more aggressive than the cubs, roared and smashed through barriers. Vraxel hunter-killers bred specifically for combat stalked through the shadows, and in the central plaza, a massive Quailon rock borer emerged, confused and angry. Commander Jake Morrison was awakened by emergency communications. Sir, we have a major situation. Multiple hostile creatures loose on the station. Casualties reported on levels 7 through 12. Jake was out of bed in seconds, pulling on his uniform. Get me Ben Clark and Danny Webb now. Within minutes, the entire human team assembled in the operations room. Security footage showed chaos. Aliens were barricading themselves in rooms. Station security was trying to contain the creatures, but their weapons were designed to stun sentient beings, not dangerous animals. The tranquilizers were not working fast enough. This was deliberate, Lieutenant Amy Chen said, studying the security logs. Someone planned this. They waited until the human team was all in one section, away from the holding facilities. It is a setup, Ben Clark agreed. Someone wants us to fail. They want the Council to see that our methods cannot handle a real crisis. Then we will prove them wrong, Jake said firmly. Ben, Danny, get your teams together. We need to contain these creatures without killing them. If we start shooting, we lose everything we have built. Ben nodded and began organizing teams. He split the humans into groups, each with specific targets. Dr. Patricia Lin would handle the medical side, treating both injured aliens and injured animals. Greg Palmer would coordinate with station security. Danny Webb would tackle the most dangerous situations. I will take the rock borer in the central plaza, Danny said. It is the biggest immediate threat. I will handle the Night Stalkers on level 9, Ben added. I have worked with them before. Young Vexrin appeared at the door with his father. We want to help, the young Krethian said. The war beasts are my species. I can talk to them. I can show them I am not afraid. Ambassador Corvin looked at Jake. My son is right. Krethian war beasts respond to confidence and authority. Vexrin has been trained by your people. Let him help. Jake wanted to refuse. Vexrin was still young, but he saw the determination in the cub's eyes. This was important. Stay with Corporal Lisa Grant. She will keep you safe. The teams deployed throughout the station. Ben Clark moved through level 9 with 4 other humans. They carried no weapons, only food treats and basic protective gear. The Night Stalkers were cornered in a large cargo bay, hissing and spitting at the security forces that had them surrounded. Hold your fire, Ben called to the security chief, a Chitauri named Clixall. Let us try first. They will kill you, Clixall warned. Maybe, Ben said. But if we start shooting, people will definitely get hurt. Give me 10 minutes. Ben entered the cargo bay slowly. There were 6 Night Stalkers, all adults. They saw him and immediately went into aggressive postures, tails raised and dripping venom. But Ben remembered what Danny had taught him. These creatures were not evil. They were scared and confused. He dropped to one knee and turned sideways. He made the soft clicking sound that Night Stalkers responded to. He pulled out synthetic meat treats and placed them on the ground in front of him. Then he waited. The Night Stalkers watched him suspiciously. One took a step forward, then another. It sniffed the air. The others followed its lead. Slowly, carefully, they approached. The first one took a treat, then another. Soon all 6 were eating from his hands. Ben stood slowly and began walking toward a holding area that security had prepared. The Night Stalkers followed him like loyal dogs following their master. Within 15 minutes, all 6 were safely contained without a single injury. On level 11, Corporal Lisa Grant and young Vexrin confronted 2 Krethian war beasts. These creatures were massive, even larger than adult Krethians with thicker armor and longer claws. They had been bred for combat and knew nothing but violence. Vexrin stepped forward before Lisa could stop him. I am Vexrin, son of Corvan, he called out in the Krethian language. I am pack leader here. You will follow me. The war beasts stopped their aggressive display. They looked at this small Krethian cub who showed no fear. In their simple minds, this was confusing. Young Krethians always showed submission to war beasts, but this one did not. Vexrin used the commands Ben had taught him. His voice was firm but not angry. Sit, he commanded in Krethian. The war beasts hesitated, then slowly lowered themselves to a sitting position. Stay, Vexrin continued. The beasts stayed. Lisa could not believe what she was seeing. She activated her communicator. Level 11 is secure. The kid did it. Vexrin actually did it. In the central plaza, Danny Webb faced his greatest challenge yet. The Quellan rock borer was as large as a small house. Its mandibles could crush steel. It was thrashing around in confusion, destroying everything in its path. Hundreds of aliens watched from safe distances, certain that the human would fail. Danny approached slowly, keeping his body language non-threatening. He noticed something important. The rock borer had injuries on its body, fresh wounds from electroprods. Someone had hurt this creature deliberately to make it aggressive. You are scared, Danny said softly, even though the creature could not understand his words. Someone hurt you, I know, but I'm not here to hurt you more. I want to help. The rock borer turned toward him, mandibles clicking together dangerously. It could kill Danny with one movement, but Danny did not run. He pulled out medical gel from his pack, the same kind used on the station for treating injuries. He moved closer. The rock borer lunged at him but stopped just short. It was a threat display, not a real attack. Danny held his ground. He reached out very slowly and touched one of the wounds on the creature's armored hide. The rock borer froze. In all its existence, when it was hurt, pain always followed. But now this small being was touching its wound gently, not causing pain, soothing it. Danny began applying the medical gel. The rock borer stood perfectly still, its aggression fading. When Danny finished treating all the visible wounds, he patted the massive creature's side. Good, he said softly. You are a good one. The rock borer made a low rumbling sound. It lowered its massive head and gently nudged Danny with its mandibles, the same way an earth elephant might with its trunk. The crowd watching erupted in amazed chatter. Throughout the station, the human teams worked their magic. Creatures that had been terrifying threats minutes ago became calm and cooperative, not through violence, not through force, through understanding and patience. The last creature to be contained was a Vraxil hunter-killer on level 4. Corporal Kevin Ross approached it carefully. The hunter-killer was injured and cornered, which made it extremely dangerous. But Kevin saw past the aggression. He saw pain and fear. He sat down on the floor, making himself small and non-threatening. He began talking in a soft, steady voice. He did not care that the creature could not understand the words. It was the tone that mattered. The calmness. After 20 minutes, the hunter-killer approached and allowed Kevin to examine its injury. A piece of metal was lodged in its leg. Kevin carefully removed it and bandaged the wound. The hunter-killer followed him peacefully to a holding area. Within 3 hours, every creature had been safely contained. Not a single animal had been killed. Injuries to station personnel were minimal, mostly from the initial panic rather than actual creature attacks. Commander Jake Morrison called an emergency council session the next morning. The chamber was packed. Everyone wanted to hear what had happened and who was responsible. Ambassador Tesseract of the Salxi stood to speak. Her scales were pale, the color of shame. I must confess. I authorized this test, not the violence, not the injuries, but I ordered the creature's release to prove that human methods were insufficient for a true crisis. I wanted to show the council that depending on humans was a mistake. Angry voices erupted from all sides. The Lumerian ambassador demanded her removal from the council. The Chitauri representative called it barbaric. Even the Vraxil, who had their own doubts about humanity, looked disgusted. Jake raised his hand for silence. When the chamber quieted, he spoke. Ambassador Tesseract, you were right about one thing. Our methods should be tested. But you were wrong about the results. Last night, my team contained dozens of dangerous creatures without killing a single one. We did this not because we are stronger than you, but because we understand something you do not yet grasp. He paused and looked around the chamber. Every species here evolved to survive. You learned to fight or to flee, to dominate or to submit, but humans evolved differently. We survived by working together, not just with other humans, but with everything around us. We learned to see past the teeth and claws. We learned that a predator is not your enemy. It is just a creature trying to survive like you are. Lieutenant Amy Chen stepped forward and added, Ambassador Tesseract fears that humans will use our abilities to manipulate you, to build an